Here is what happens on a driving test day. We're at Mirrabooka Licensing Centre. Test time 1:50 p.m. The examiner is walking with the candidate towards the vehicle where he parked. So the car park's pretty packed, but most of the cars are stationary, so not many people are moving through. When they get closer to the vehicle, the examiner will ask the candidate to sit in the car, to turn the ignition on, which means that you have the lights on the dashboard so you can operate your indicators and the stop lights, which is what they check. Sometimes the examiner will check your tyres as well, your seat belts, even the windows to check if they're rolling up and down. Now the examiner is asking the candidate to indicate left and indicate right, and once he's done that, he's going to check the rear indicators and the stop lights. We always recommend that the candidate opens the window so they can hear what the examiner is asking them to do. Once the checks are complete, the assessor will sit in the car, and most examiners explain briefly what's going to take place, what are the sections like, when are they going to ask them to do certain things. Also, I want to mention that assessors do not trick candidates. For example, they will not forget purposely to put the seatbelt on, and if the candidate, the driver, doesn't recognise a potential hazard, they fail them on the spot. We've never had that sort of experience in the last 20 plus years. Don't forget to start the engine, because sometimes if a candidate is really nervous, they would think that the engine was running and they would attempt to move, and as a result the assessor will be forced to discontinue a driving test unless the candidate rectifies the problem immediately. Don't forget to use indicators in the car park. You have to indicate your intention. From the moment you start the engine on until the time you switch it off at the end of the driving test when you park back here in the licensing centre, every moment between switching your engine on and switching it off counts, and every single action will contribute to scoring your points and to passing or failing your driving test. In this instance, the candidate has gone past the first exit and is going towards the second exit where you can turn left or right. Mirrabooka Avenue can be pretty busy at any time of the day or night, so at this time of the day it is relatively busy, so you've got to keep your eyes open and you've got to be able to give way properly. The best rule and easiest to follow is, if there's the slightest doubt, do not proceed. If you're committed to turning halfway, you've got to make sure that your entire vehicle fits inside of the little refuge lane, the spot where you can wait for the traffic to clear before you proceed. If you can fit into the right lane, if there's no traffic and if you're not going to interfere with anyone, you can go to the right lane. In this instance, the assessor asked him to turn right at the next traffic light, so staying in the right lane is perfectly acceptable. So this is as far as we could follow him, but I'm going to recreate what happened from here on and why this candidate did not pass his driving assessment. It's always a good indication whether you succeeded or not if your test doesn't go for longer than half an hour. The candidate is back in the licensing centre car park within about 15 to 16 minutes, which is never a good sign. Something must have happened that prompted the assessor to discontinue the test. So let's see what happened. So I'm going to have a chat with both candidate and the assessor, and according to their feedback, I'm going to recreate what happened. So that way you can avoid failing your driving assessment. So here is what happened. As you could see, they proceeded through the car park, and they went past the first exit on the left-hand side, headed towards the second exit. So here is the licensing centre on the right-hand side, as you can see. So just passing the first exit, we've got a few bumps here. At this stage of your driving assessment, you can expect that your heart's going to beat a little bit harder. A lot of people report that they're nervous in the first minutes of the driving test, whereas later on they get a little bit, more relaxed. But unfortunately, sometimes a little bit too relaxed, and they don't recognise some important aspects of a driving assessment, and as a result, they fail. So here, when we're exiting, we can simply go into the refuge lane. There's no access from the left-hand side, which makes it a lot easier. Now, the assessor asked him to turn right at the next street, at the next traffic lights. There was no problems with that, so it was all smooth. By the way, this young bloke was well prepared. He could drive really well. I could not believe that he failed. He would hardly make any errors, apart from maybe some parking errors, mainly in path and flow. So he's kept going. There was all good, no problems whatsoever. According to the assessor's comments, there was nothing that he could pick. His general driving was pretty good. They turned left at the first roundabout here. It was all smooth, no problems whatsoever. So as they proceeded, there was not much of a, conversation exchanged. It was pretty quiet. And you could expect when you do relatively well that you might get relaxed a little bit more and, start to sort of think a little bit more clearly. The downside of being too relaxed is you might let some important things slip your mind. Oftentimes people tell us that they were thinking about parking before they even got there, or thinking about the exercise left some behind while performing some other manoeuvres. Do one thing at a time and you will not have problems with focus. So this is really an easy driving test route. Heading down towards Northwood Drive. So there's shops on the right-hand side, so they were not going to do the exercise stopping for shopping just yet. So generally this assessor goes through the exercise left some behind first, and then, towards the end of the test they do the stopping for shopping. Another roundabout, all good and smooth. There was no problems whatsoever with, indicating and observing and anticipating the traffic prior to getting to the roundabouts. It was all good. Just scored pretty much every point for that. Now they turned here on Northwood Drive, okay, which is a 60 zone. And initially there are 2 lanes, but at some point it's going to be merging into one. Keep an eye on everything when you have to give way. If you have a slightest doubt, do not proceed. Doubt takes a couple of seconds, which is a valuable amount of time for you to make a decision. So if you wasted those couple of seconds, it's best to wait for the next best opportunity. So shortly we're going to have merging traffic. From here you can see the sign. So yeah, there's a merging traffic up there. We're indicating check-in blind spot. And we merge. Make sure you don't deviate too much when you're merging, because the road becomes more and more narrow. So still 60 zone on Northwood Drive. So that's the bridge over the Reed Highway. And we've got a tiny roundabout which is pretty sharp. We've got a little slow point before the roundabout and then the narrow roundabout. Okay, we're going straight through here, indicating left on time. So it was all pretty smooth here. Now, around here, to the best of my knowledge, the candidate got a speed warning. So apparently he was doing about 65 in a 60 zone, which is not an immediate fail. They will not fail you if it's within the 5 kilometers above the speed limit, because most cars are built to show a slightly higher speed than the true speed. They kept driving down towards Boyar Avenue and they turned left at the next roundabout. So as you get off Northwood Drive to Boyar Avenue, the speed changes to 50 kilometres an hour. Shortly after, the candidate drove about 55 again. So he got a second speed warning, which was not a fail again. Now, as they approached the Mirrabooka Avenue intersection, the assessor asked him to turn right. There's obviously a stop sign, and also you have to give way to both left and right hand side. This is the intersection where this young bloke failed. The candidate committed to turning before everyone proceeded. There was a car approximately at a distance of about 30 to 40 metres approaching from the left-hand side, which you should have waited for. Because if someone's approaching at, say, 40, 50 kilometres an hour to turn, and you are doing 0 kilometres an hour, that's a huge difference in speed. So what happened next? The assessor jumped onto the dual brakes. He had to brake to intervene to avoid a potentially dangerous situation. And then they made a U-turn and came back to the licensing centre. When I asked the student, why did he do such an error, he said that he assumed that he already failed for speeding, which wasn't the case. Do not make any assumptions what happened. Even if you got speed warnings, it doesn't mean that you failed. So obviously that affected him, and he kind of, just wanted to finish it. He believed that he could beat the car that was coming on the left-hand side, but according to the assessor, who's very experienced and, very kind assessor, says that, there would be no way that, for him to proceed safely before that car interferes with his path. As always, feel free to ask any questions in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.